Hi, this is Jen Rubin, editor-in-chief of The Contrarian. I am thrilled to bring you Representative Chris Turner, who is one of the Democrats from Texas who is breaking quorum. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Jen. Great to be with you.
Great to have you. What are you hearing from your constituents back home? What are they telling you? Do they want you to keep at this? What's been the traffic back and forth?
Well, thanks for having me. And yes, they do want us to keep fighting. We've heard really overwhelmingly positive feedback from my constituents in Arlington and Grand Prairie up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And that's been the same for my colleagues across the state. People have had just overwhelmingly positive response from their constituents. And they're so grateful that Democrats are fighting and taking on Donald Trump and Greg Abbott and this naked power grab they're trying to do through an intentionally discriminatory redistricting process.
Yeah. Now, the seats were redistricted right after the 2020 census, like they were all over the country. But this is coming back for a second bite at the apple. In your view, would this have happened had it not been for Donald Trump, in essence, trying to tell Texas what to do?
Absolutely not. This is 100% Trump. The fact is that Trump and his people came up with this idea because they know the margin in the U.S. House is very tight, the tightest it's been since the 1930s. And they're at real risk of losing the House in the 2026 midterm elections based on history, but more importantly, based on the unpopularity of Trump's policies so far in this second term. But fortunately for Trump, he found a willing accomplice in Greg Abbott, who doesn't have the strength to stand up to the president and say no, that's not good for Texas. So they're intentionally going about doing this just to please him, and because they're afraid of him. And so no, I think if Trump were not president, this would not be happening.
There are no shortage of things to be concerned about in Texas. And in particular, I know the state is still reeling after the tragic flood and the death of so many young girls. Were you surprised when the governor called a special session for this as opposed to something regarding Texas's emergency management or any other issue that's facing the state?
Yeah, sadly, I was not surprised. Just having served with Greg Abbott in Texas government now for a while, this just how he operates. And then, unfortunately, this rumor about redistricting, but before it became real, it was a rumor that had gotten pretty pervasive beginning in May around the Capitol. And then there was some reporting in the course of June that Trump was really serious about this, and so we kind of saw the writing on the wall at that point that it was going to happen. Tragically, as you say, we lost 137 Texans during that horrific, excuse me, horrific flooding event in the Hill Country on July the 4th. And Abbott put items related to the flooding on the special session agenda, but we saw it for what it was, simply a fig leaf for the real agenda, which was to deliver 5 congressional districts for Donald Trump.
Now, he and the Attorney General have made all kinds of threats to issue a civil warrant, which is just basically a order to come back to the legislature. They want to declare that you have abandoned your seats. They're making noises about bribery charges. Does any of that affect your decision making or those of your fellow legislators?
No, it really doesn't. Break down those one by one. The civil warrants is something that the Speaker of the House and the remaining members of the House can authorize when there is not a quorum present. We fully expected that to happen. That's happened in every quorum break in Texas that I know of in the last 25 years. So that was expected. What is different is this rhetoric from Abbott and Paxton with respect to trying to vacate our seats or file felony charges against us. And it's just laughable. It's just typical MAGA bluster, trying to look tough and act tough and sound tough, and trying to make sure, I think they're trying to, show off for President Trump and say we're tough down here. We're just as tough as you would be on them, because knowing how Trump is, he wouldn't, I wouldn't put it past him to call them out if he thought they weren't being tough enough. And they're terrified of that. They're terrified of any criticism from the cult leader. And so I think that's what's driving a lot of this.
Have you heard from any of your Republican colleagues? Are they thrilled about how this has panned out?
Well, I have actually personally not heard from any of my Republican colleagues since we left the Capitol, left the state on Sunday. I think that what I've seen from them so far in news media and on social media is what I would expect. A lot of insults and chest pounding and everything. But it's kind of their behavior has kind of been consistent with what it was 4 years ago when we did this, and so I haven't seen anything particularly surprising out of them at this point.
Now, you have been welcomed with open arms by Democratic governors, and Governor Newsom in California and Governor Hochul in New York have also said, you know what, we're willing to fight fire with fire. If you guys redistrict, we'll try to do it in our states. Do you think they're serious about that? And if that comes to be, do you think the Democrats will wind up, frankly, ahead rather than behind if this goes into a war of redistricting?
Yeah, listen, and let me, as some about other governors, let me first thank Governor Pritzker for welcoming us here in Illinois and being such a gracious host and so supportive. I was part of the small delegation that traveled from Texas to Sacramento about 10 or 11 days ago to meet with Governor Newsom. And it was a very productive meeting. Governor Newsom was very generous with his time and listened intently as we explained exactly what they were doing in Texas and how they were going about doing it, how they're intentionally seeking out majority minority congressional districts and then dismantling them to deny Black and Hispanic Texans the ability to elect the candidates of their choice. And he fully agreed that this is a national crisis, and this is, consistent with Trump's march to becoming a dictator, which is what we know he wants, and he's taking it very, very seriously. And I think his public comments that day and since that day have been very positive from my point of view. In that, if Texas goes through with this, I think California is fully weighing all its options. And certainly, I think there's 9 Republican members of Congress from California. Certainly, if California did undertake redistricting, I would think that would certainly cause a lot of concern in the Republican Party in California and in Washington on Capitol Hill. So absolutely, this is a dangerous game Trump is playing, and he may well end up with a wash in the best case, or may end up on the losing end. The best solution would be just to drop this entire thing altogether, run under the maps that we have now. And by the way, it should be noted, our maps in Texas, the existing maps, are heavily gerrymandered and are also discriminatory. And that's the subject of a federal voting rights trial that just concluded in before a 3-judge panel in El Paso in June. We're awaiting the outcome of that trial. But in the meantime, Republicans are trying to double down and make a discriminatory map even more discriminatory. That's just how bad this whole process has gotten.
As I understand it, the map has about 80% Republican, and Donald Trump won about 56% of the state, to your point about how imbalanced it really has become. Obviously, if these maps should go through, there'll be plenty of litigation because they do seem to discriminate and try to deprive minority voters of representation. How long is this fight, do you think, going to go on? At some point, they have to agree on some map because a little over a year from now, there are going to be elections.
Absolutely. Well, and these fights do go on a long time. As I mentioned, the 2021 map, the trial on that just occurred this year, 4 years after it was adopted, and so. But I do expect that because of this extraordinary mid-decade effort, that there's going to be certainly immediate filings if and when a map does pass. Now, how soon the judiciary takes those challenges up, I don't know, but clearly. I believe that there is a very strong case to be made that the districts they are targeting and tearing apart in this process are districts that are protected under the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And as we speak today, today is the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights
It
Act of
is indeed.
1965.
It
And
is.
so I think courts will take a dim view of what the legislature is doing. Admittedly, the courts have changed, and there's a lot of appointees of President Trump on there, but the Voting Rights Act is still the law of the land, and that should mean something.
Um, Big picture, if you're a voter in Iowa or California or Pennsylvania, why should you care about this? People may say, oh, that's a Texas fight. But you seem to indicate there's something bigger at play here. What is that?
Yeah, there is, and that's one reason why we are breaking quorum is we want to raise awareness of this issue because what's happening in Texas obviously negatively impacts Texans, and that's why we're here first and foremost. But it also impacts every other American citizen. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican or neither, you should want free and fair elections, and for the country to be able to decide who you want to represent you in Congress and what party you want to have in control of Congress. If you rig the elections and rig the maps to where there's no question about the outcome, that's not good for democracy. That's not good for anybody. And so it's important, no matter what state you live in, to recognize what Trump is trying to do. And look, if you're in a red state, we want to sound the alarm bells because this disaster may be coming your way soon. If you're in a blue state, we need you to join with us and do all you can to fight this and push back and fight fire with fire.
Well, best of luck to you and your colleagues. We are going to keep following this, and we hope you come back with us as this story unfolds. So thanks so much, and thanks for what you're doing for democracy. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.